quorum. Call the planning board meeting to order. And first up for general information, Mr. Dwyer.
First in was Mike Balunas.
Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. My wife and I are looking to get an extension on our accessory apartment at 39 Lawrence Plain Road.
What a 1-year extension?
If we could do 2, that would be great.
I believe we're limited by the law to 1 year at a time. It's not that we wouldn't give it 2 years, but I think the law says we can only do 1 year.
Okay.
Well,
This is over near the next barn over, right? This is
No,
this
we're
is
next,
just up the street?
yeah. We're right across from Adair Place.
Oh, okay. So you're up closer to Cedar Reach, okay.
Yeah, right
Next door. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Bill, I interrupted you.
make a motion to approve a 1-year extension of the special permit.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. You want to put that up, Mr. Dwyer? You want me to do it?
I'll do that as an amendment to the decision.
Okay,
So, yeah, I'll do that.
all right.
Okay. Do we get any paperwork or anything like that, or how does that work?
I'll probably write it up as something I can file with the town clerk. So yes, you'll get a piece of paper.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Give me a week
Thank
or
you.
so. It's approved
Okay.
tonight.
yeah, you're all set though.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Good night.
You.
You
Very
too.
good. Next up, Mr. Dwyer.
Okay, let me get, next up would be Mr. Phil.
Okay, I sent Jimmy to forward to all you guys, the, street plot plans. So, we're talking about 215 Middle Street, and it's, plot number 45. And, I don't know if you guys have that in front of you, but it's really a dogleg property, that goes behind 3 other, 213, 211, and 209 Middle Street.
So David, just, can I interrupt? I'll try to bring it up, but did you send it to planning or did you send it to Jim?
You sent it to me
I
and
sent it-
I forwarded it to everybody. It's around 1228, Bill, 1229.
Okay. Let me just. Go ahead. I'll just try to.
Okay, so, anyways, Joyce and I bought the property probably in the 90s. And, well, I'll go back further. It was Joe and Stella Mishlanka that were selling off the frontage of, their farmland. And, so it was checked by my father, and then their, daughter built houses in that order, and they kept the backland as farmland. When we bought it, the land was already not being used. And then we just turned it into open space, and I mow it and get trees and stuff for our kids would play out there and whatnot. But anyways, whoever's in 215 Middle Street really doesn't ever go back there. I'd like to attach part of that property, the part furthest north, to 209 Middle Street, that with them deed. And what this is really accomplishing, it's making, well, like 209 Middle Street will go from Middle Street down to the ditch, just like it does on the other properties going toward Bay Road. And then I
You ready?
also,
We'll bring it up.
Yep. Here it comes.
Okay.
Okay.
okay, so like, number 47 is 209 Middle Street. And, where the dashed line is, we'd like to go and, have it survey out and put a, one deed for the parcel 209 would be all the way down to the ditch. Like as I'm getting 49 and 48. And then the piece behind plot 46 and 45A, at this point, we would like to just keep that as a separate parcel in our name. And it is landlocked, but we do own, 215 and 209 Middle Street, so we can get to it without an issue.
A, that must be 213.
Yes. 46 is 211. Well, it's marked there, but
Yeah. So I'm sorry, David, so you own 209 and 215? Okay,
yes, yeah.
okay.
I think it's doable on an approval not required plan.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just, I guess, wanted to make sure you guys were good with that before I spent money on surveying and whatnot.
Could you move the map up, Bill, so we look more where the yellow box is? Okay,
Okay,
move it up some more. More? Okay, stop. On 11 Isabel Court, Dave, that's where you got you want to take that parcel and kind of divide it off? Just make
Yeah.
sure 11 Isabel Court has 40,000 square feet in it when you cut it out, that's all.
I thought you said it was 30.
No, you're in where you wanted to pull off the section was 30. Make sure the total acreage of 11 Isabel Court is 40,000, because that's in the aquifer.
good point.
Because, I misunderstood you then, because I thought you said we needed 30,000 square feet for a lot because it's on septic. And
No. Okay, yeah, I'm either you missed this, I may not have explained it clear enough, but I was looking at at 11, and because of the boundaries on there, it's not really, the numbers aren't adding up correctly to what I see. In any case, 11 Isabel Court needs 40,000 square feet. So you've got approximately where that dotted line is, you've got about, I'm gonna ballpark it at 34,000 square feet. So you need to just move that dotted line over to get 40,000, that's all.
okay, so I guess I'm looking, I really want to keep it a straight line for farming purposes. Because what we're trying to do is the leftover land from the dotted line that goes down to parcel 29, that piece is going to be attached to 206 Middle Street. So that way it's always going to be farmland. And we rent out both of those pieces. Well, Zahowski or Rex, they're both using it depending on the year. But we'd like to really keep a dashed line because it lines up with the other boundary. And it's a pain in the neck for the farmers to plow when they'd like to do it straight. Is there a way, given that we're not adding a house or anything else to this property, is there a way we could go to zoning board of appeals or something? Or
You could go to the zoning board of appeals if you could show a hardship. I don't know you have it. The most important thing is to find out how much land is in 11 Isabel Court. Because the property lines on, if you would, where you got 439, where you got, so we got 262.4 and 262.4 opposite each other.
I got some.
Yep.
Okay. you've got 439, 439 on the southerly property line of 11 Isabel Court, and the numbers don't add up.
No, I think we did it quickly and it was like 38,000 when you and I originally talked, but I don't know if that's what it is.
It says it's
Um,
1.4 acre, which would put it at 61,000 total. So if you're gonna take 40, you're gonna leave 21, so it's gonna be like a 2/3, 1/3.
But this is an example for those people who wonder why we ask for a plot plan. These are not always accurate in their figures, the assessor's maps. So if you're gonna go ahead, certainly we're leaning towards the approval. If you're gonna go ahead and have it surveyed, then you can find out exactly what you have. And then we
Well,
can make,
Okay, I already had a surveyor out there because I was under the impression that it was like, I had to have 30,000 square feet. He hasn't come back with all the numbers, but he figured it was over 30,000. How much over 30,000? Quick figuring, I don't know. But again, we're doing this, so if I ever sold off 11 Isabel Court, that chunk land between Isabel Court and number 29 would be attached to a 6 Middle Street, which would have a nice piece of farmland. And
well, I mean,
it-
the arrangement could be made, just to continue the plowing straight and ignore, for the farmer's point of view, the boundaries. That's not make any difference if you own the property.
Yeah, just get an agricultural easement over part of it, but I'm not sure it's going to even be an issue, because if I do just a rough calculation of the 125, I can't tell, I think 125 is there to there.
yes,
And I'm going to say 159 is here to here. And those numbers, whatever, just clear, 159 plus 125 equals 284 times 146. Very roughly, that gets you 41,000 right there. So we can go around in circles here, but I think we just need to get the numbers pinned down.
okay,
Yeah, that, if
It
that.
looks like you
1.4
may be
acres. is
very
wrong.
close already.
all right.
That,
So-
yeah, that's my point. Get that surveyed and find out what that parcel is. Because the numbers don't. No, enough said.
Okay, so we need to have 40,000 square feet.
Yes.
And, all right. So zoning board of appeals, my hardship would be it's hard for, the farmers. So, all right. Okay, 40,000. Okay, okay, so I'll have to, follow up with him on that. And, as far as the stuff on the other side of Middle Street, you guys are all good with that?
That's what they said, yes.
And this would be the same on this one too, an approval not required plan, just have to show it as two lots.
Okay. But you still need that 40,000, even though we got such tiny little lots up and down the rest of the street?
Yep,
Okay,
because
all right,
you're creating a new lot, so you have to conform to current zoning.
okay. All right, I understand. I can go back and forth with you all night long, but I know where you guys are coming from, and you know where I'm coming from.
We can't be arbitrary and capricious. Or we get in trouble.
Okay. All right, well, I guess, that's good for tonight, and, thank you for your time, unless you got something else to tell me that I need to do before we move further.
Could be good,
Okay?
right?
We'll see you
All
when you
right,
have,
Okay.
thank you.
you know how to find us when you have a plan.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good night, thank you.
Next up was, I believe it's Christian Brunelli.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Christian Brandley at Chestnut Realty, owner operator of real estate in Boston. We own the Stop and Shop Anchored Center in Hadley, and we bought in October of 2022. And we, with it came, call it 16 acres of land behind the shopping center. We think we have engaged a few different third parties. We believe that there are approximately 10 acres of upland development area behind the shopping center. And what Bill just pulled up was a conceptual drawing that we had put together with a site developer. This is 5 acres of non-climate controlled self-storage. And we are trying to get, or I'd like to get, is your directional blessing of this is something that the town would like, and that this would be well received by the town. We're trying to figure out access to this area behind the shopping center. Now, of course, you can go to the left, which is where TJ Maxx is, or to the right, which is H&R Block is, but we're trying to figure that out still, what the path of least resistance is. There's a, I believe it's called a paper road or paper street on Campus Plaza that pulls you behind there into the wetland area that we're not sure is applicable for this project, but we're trying to figure out the best use for the large piece of land behind our shopping center. In this big circle here, you guys probably know it better than I. It's where there's a Sprint antenna back there, so that's what that circle is. It's the drop zone in the event there's an issue, so that we're developing outside of that drop zone and also outside of most of the flood zone. So this is approximately 82,500 square feet. Our understanding is that 70,000 square feet or more requires a special permit from the planning board and the farmland preservation bylaw. But really what we wanted to do here was raise our hand, point to this, and just see if you guys have any feedback. You know, we're very preliminary on this project. There's a few non-climate controlled self-storage facilities up and down Russell Street, Route 9. So wanted to get any feedback possible.
So
Where's
is north to the top of the screen?
Yeah, that's good point, Jim. That's my question too. Where's the Verizon tower?
The Verizon tower is that circle right there.
Okay.
So it,
Go
so
ahead.
north
Stop
is
and
to
Shop
top
is
of
off the
screen
bottom of
and
the
south-
page.
Correct.
plaza
Southbound
is-
southbound plan.
It's
Yep,
toward the bottom of the screen, correct?
that's right. That's
Right. And Big Y would be off to the right.
correct. Yep.
Okay,
We're leaning towards option A. So if you can flip to the first one, I think this is the first one.
Yeah, option A, yeah. That's big. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this one. And it's incorrect that there's, so if you stay on option A, which is the top one.
Okay.
This
I
one.
mean, it's a permitted use in a permitted zone. Whether or
Yes.
not it's a good idea, we don't comment on that because that's a risk that the developer is taking.
Yeah,
If it meets, you know, wetlands is the probably the biggest concern here. Are you know, you need the delineation with the Conservation Commission and drawn up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if this is upland and it's a permitted use, go forward with a site plan approval and we'll
Is,
conduct the hearings.
is that where the homeless encampment was?
Is,
Was,
Is.
was.
okay.
There are some homeless issues back there, and this is one of the solutions perhaps to that, to remove some trash and stuff from the area. But the purpose of this is to build, is to, you know, utilize that land back there, but there has been some homeless issues in the past.
So two questions that Christian alluded to. Number one is access, and the other question would be square footage and parking available, and according to our rules and regulations. You wouldn't have
Does
enough
that,
available, so
right, does that parking apply to a non-occupied?
yeah,
Mhm.
Yes,
it does. We don't,
parking applies to period.
Okay,
Whether or not it's a storage, as long as it's a building, it applies if it's a commercial space.
Would the same parking that we put in place for,
and
Vanessa's place apply to this? Or
no,
not?
Only if it's zoned industrial.
Yeah,
no, Mark, that was a poignant question. The fact that why are we doing something like that? Because properties change and
Right.
uses change. And we found out many, many times that all of a sudden where we kind of waived some of the parking, and then all of a sudden a restaurant goes in and there's not enough parking, they end up parking on the street. So, right, we need a delineation from the Conservation Commission, and how will they access that road?
it's 2 for 1 square footage for parking.
Yeah,
that seems, no,
It's a little, over the top, but what are you gonna do?
But remember, we don't count spaces, so much of that area that they have set aside to access would count for parking.
I don't know if they may have excess parking in the campus plaza.
Yeah, is this gonna, you're not gonna, survey this off and have a separate parcel as part of the campus plaza, correct?
There's no
Where,
frontage. There's no frontage on a street, Mike, so it can't be surveyed off.
Yeah,
an element that we're looking into is using the paper road as frontage.
what's a paper road?
The paper street. So if you're looking on a map, it's I think it's called Campus Plaza Road. It's by the Chili's. And that road, pursuant to the GIS map, goes into the wetland area back there. It doesn't exist, but it is a paper street pursuant to the town.
If this has frontage on that road, it might qualify, but it's gotta have adequate frontage.
If you, again, it gets back into the parking calculation too. If you have surplus parking capacity on your parcel as a whole, you can apply that to building this out.
Right. But if you cut it off as a separate parcel, the excess parking in the Stop and Shop Plaza can't count towards parking here. So it's whichever works out better for you, depending on a myriad of things.
From a historical point of view, the piece of property to the north of this that extends to Rocky Hill Road is probably available. You could put a through road there.
Over to the
So that's
U-Haul.
wetlands.
It's wet, yeah. I'm surprised that my consultant may have missed something on the parking. What is the parking rule? It's 2 for 1. What is?
2 square feet of parking for each square foot of building. And parking is a little bit confusing because if you have, try to explain it briefly. If you have, go to the parking in front of Stop and Shop. If you have a parking on each side and a driveway through the middle, the entire, both sides of parking in the driveway through the middle count towards the parking. But if you have just a road, like at the end where you drive around the road between Stop and Shop and like the tire place, that road technically doesn't count towards the parking because there's no parking off it. It's just a road.
Makes sense.
So if they put parallel parking along their storage units, at least on one side, then you could count that entire aisle.
Well, how many square footage of storage is there?
82,000 square feet on this plan.
And how many square feet is that parcel?
I think he says.
The parcel is 10 acres. Oh, the parcel is far bigger. The upland component of it is 10 acres. This developed parcel on this plan is approximately 5 acres.
So you've got an area which could be used for parking, but you're not necessarily, don't have to dedicate it, correct, Jim? I guess the parcel is greater than what's being shown here.
In the comments, so I'm not sure.
So that's partially correct, Mike. They still have to have the numbers that match, but they don't have to pave it all.
Exactly.
Right. Yes,
Do you have that?
but it's all going to be upland.
Yeah.
Got it. That'll be helpful.
It's going to be usable. The idea is that you don't need to pave all the parking required. You just got to be able to pave it at a notice without going through a bunch of stuff if it is ever required down the road. So your design, yes, we could use this, we could do this, we could do this, but for the time being, it could just be grassland.
Understood. That's super helpful.
Or grades or what it might be today.
But it would have to be graded, basically level with the proposed parking, right?
You know, Mark, that is correct, and it has to comply to the zoning drainage requirements as if it were paved. Because someday it will be.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then super helpful. An item, we're not developers, so we're trying to figure it out as we go here. I think the next effort for us to get conversation with is for the conservation agent. That's a whole nother group, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I'm the conservation agent for Hadley. I can give you my email if you want to get in touch with me.
That'd be amazing.
conservation@hadleyma.gov. And if you want to speak to the commission, we're having our next meeting on Tuesday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, Kayla.
So if you email me, I can then send you the Zoom link for that meeting, or it'll also be posted on the website.
Awesome. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll be back to the drawing board and maybe we'll catch up with you in a few weeks, okay?
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Bye.
Okay, next up was Mr. Reedy.
Thanks, Mr. Dwyer. Hi, everybody. So I wanted to talk to you about 315 Russell Street. It is the Steve Lewis Subaru property. Belize bought it, Jeb Belize bought it last year. We've been going through plan iterations and we're at a point where we're about ready to submit. One of the questions relates to parking. I know. Especially as it relates to display space. And obviously there's still the 2-to-1 calculation. Home Depot, Lowe's has that same requirement. But we wanted to have a kind of twofold conversation. One of them is going to be whether the board would entertain a zoning bylaw amendment similar to what we did for ideal movers and storage, and just to, because it's in the industrial zone, the lease is in the industrial zone. And so whether you'd want to include automotive sales as, because right now it reads any building hereafter constructed or modified, altered or expanded for industrial/manufacturing use in the industrial zoning district. That's the way your bylaw currently reads. But I wonder if you'd want to expand that to say automotive sales, and I also added or other uses as determined by the planning board. And that may be too open-ended for you, but I wanted to at least, and I had sent this over to Bill, and I can share it on my screen or share it with the board. Any way is fine with me. I really just wanted to gauge your thoughts on whether or not you'd be amenable to bringing forward another zoning amendment for this auto sale use in the industrial zoning district. The plans that we currently have show about 36,000 square feet of building area and about 17,000 square feet of outdoor display space. The way I read your bylaw for TDR, you also, alternatively, besides the zoning amendment, have the ability to reduce from 2 to 1 to 1.5 to 1. And even then, we'd still have to purchase maybe 2.5 plus acres of TDR. So really the question is whether we even want to have the conversation about another zoning amendment for auto sales. And if not, then whether the board may consider reducing from 2 to 1.5 that parking requirement for this automotive sales use.
So including auto sales in the definition of an industrial use?
Well, so
have you seen that in other municipalities?
Yes, I've never seen parking like yours in other municipalities. So we had changed this for ideal movers and storage based upon the conversation about, well, what's the real parking demand for a use like this? And so I think this was maybe 2 years ago. We helped craft, and the planning board crafted a zoning bylaw that specifically dealt with industrial or manufacturing, because you have in your use category industrial or manufacturing uses in the industrial district. Right, so it had to be industrial manufacturing use and in the industrial zoning district. So what I'm asking is, we still have that industrial zoning district kind of baseline. So the property has to be in that industrial zoning district. But then now the question is, do we want to expand the type of uses that would be under that ideal movers and storage amendment? And I can read through what the requirements are if you'd like, but it's really, more principally, it's a reduction from what you require right now. So the question is it something you want to explore, or is it something where you say, listen, Tom, town meeting's a couple of months away. We don't really think, we have the capacity or appetite to do it. Maybe we just keep TDR the way it is. So just because that's really going to help determine which way we kind of push on this before we submit.
Well, I'll direct it, first of all, the zoning regarding automobile dealership was not brought forward by the planning board, but brought forward by a citizens group who felt they did not want to see an increase in the number of automobile dealerships on Route 9. So there's not a lot of sentiment in town to make favorable zoning, I don't think, and this is really an expansion of an automobile dealership. It's the same one. So I feel the sentiment is not there because those people are still in the audience at the planning board. I mean, at the town meeting that brought that forward.
I do feel, well, we only have 2 Class 1 dealers in town, that it would be maybe a better plan to craft a bylaw that would perhaps exempt or give some credit for vehicle displays against the parking requirement rather than try to tweak something for the just for the subdivision, just for the industrial district. Yeah.
And now, having said that, for example, they bought some additional property next to where Steve Lewis used to own, Rouse Coffee in particular. And I've noticed the automobiles now are very close to Route 9, and I don't remember them coming before the planning board for any exception as they did to the building where those automobiles are. They were given a special exemption from the planning board to be only 30 feet back from Route 9, the former Route 9. So those cars are parked almost on Route 9. What are we going to do about that?
So that's, Joe, I think it's a
That's a
good
separate
point.
argument. That's a separate argument.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point. And so we're in, I expect to have revised plans in the next, I was hoping for the end of this month so we could try to submit at your first February meeting. Not that that's the answer to your question, and I'll get to that answer in a minute, but through that process, there's going to be a site redesign. And I think one of the waivers we're going to be requesting is the ability to park within, I think, that 50-foot front yard setback. I don't think it's going to be as close as what's there today. And so what I'll do is I'll go back and just I'll have the conversation with them. And then if you say, Tom, come back and ask for permission in the interim while we're going through the process, you know me, I'm happy to do that. I don't know that they knew that there was any prohibition on doing what they did. That area had been used as a staging area, I think, most recently before the cars went there, or the vehicles went there, by the folks who were doing the Route 9 improvement. So I know that there was, big equipment and construction vehicles in that area.
I'm not in favor of a zoning amendment. It seems like it's too unique to the auto dealership for like one or two. I'm kind of more inclined to Mr. Dwyer's idea that maybe there's a way we can look at the rules and somehow say that the display of automobiles may partially count towards the parking. Because, I think we're all in agreement that the amount of customers and employees you're going to see at that any auto dealership is not going to require that amount of parking. And to put a special amendment forward, I'm afraid it's going to bite us down the road. Whereas if we can find a way to bend the rules or flex the rules, maybe whatever you want to call it, to somehow allow some of the parking of your parking cars. And that's what we're trying to do, is allow space to park cars. And if we can find a way to work that out, that might be a much better solution, because it's going to be only for this one or two of these two dealerships, as opposed to down the road, the place is sold off, somebody comes in and says, well, we're going to do this and that, only to find out they don't have enough parking.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, Jim. That's really why I'm here to have this conversation, especially given town meetings, a little bit around the corner.
We could figure something. I would hope we could figure something out that works to both of our needs.
Okay. Okay. Well, then let me go back. I'll have the conversation per what Joe had said, but then I'll also let them know to move forward with the design. And I'd expect to, hopefully sometime in February, if either the first or the second meeting in February, I'll be here and ready to submit the application material for the redevelopment. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
The next arrival was iPhone 2. I don't know if you have something to discuss with the planning board or just watching the show.
iPhone 2? Do you have any questions? You're just not listening either. You're muted, iPhone 2, if you're trying to say anything. Let's move on.
And we are on to the status conference for In the Green Gardens. I did receive this afternoon some pictures from Mr. Viano. iPhone 2 is
Paul's around it.
also on there. Okay. I did receive some pictures from Steve. I sent them around to everyone here. I also sent them to the abutters, Paul and Lisa, and to the building department. You want me to, I'll bring them up on the screen too. Yeah. So let's see. Let's see if I can just share this email as a whole. I can move it a bit. Okay, so he reports that he has repaired the fence and cleaned up the yard, is getting a quote for survey work. And then he included some pictures of current status of the yard.
Is this the informal hearing now, or?
Now, this
No.
is not a continuation of the public hearing. This is a status conference primarily at Mike's request to verify that this work has in fact been done. The suggestion was that if nothing was done, that we would ask the zoning enforcement officer to issue a cease and desist. Work has been done. It is not a complete resolution of the open issues, but it is what it is.
Yes. It's simply showing that the fence has been repaired per the comments at the last meeting.
And the yard seems to be considerably cleaned up.
Yes.
And I noticed in his notes that he made to us that he said that this issue is more of a landlord issue than his issue. And if that's the case, doesn't this become owner versus owner?
Wasn't that only part of the issue? Was that about the grading?
Right. That's the way I read it.
It was at the bottom, yeah.
My attorney reviewed my lease. It seems this will fall under the responsibility of the landlord to carry through the grading. So it still has to be resolved.
Yeah.
That has to be resolved between those two parties. That's something that's out of the jurisdiction of the planning board.
Correct.
We're simply applying the zoning bylaws, and how it gets done between the applicant and the actual landlord is up to them.
Well, they need a permit. Well, they need to have site plan review. And doesn't it have to comply to zoning bylaws in order for this?
Again, this is not a continuation of the hearing. This is just a comment about the getting the fence done. So I mean, I'm not trying to shut you off by any stretch.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we apply what we said at the last meeting. This is just a meeting to say that the fence has been done and the site has been somewhat cleaned up. That's it.
And where do we go there?
And that's really because we didn't post this as a continuation of the hearing. And if we talk too much about the hearing, we could be in trouble with the open meeting law. That's all. I'm not, that's, I'm not trying to shut anybody off. I just want to be clear on the consequences.
The meeting, the continuation is scheduled for Tuesday, February 6th.
Right.
And did you folks get the information from the Conservation Commission that I supplied them?
Yes.
And hopefully you've had a chance to review it to see that it is in the buffer.
We're not talking about that today. This is just whether he did what he was asked to do as an interim repair, and he has done that, apparently.
That is correct.
We do want to address one point, and I know Steve is with us. The final question here, that there has not been a site plan submitted by prior tenants, and will one be requested for future tenants? The failure to conduct site plan approval when this was converted from residential purposes to business purposes was an administrative oversight at the time. It should have been reviewed with each change of tenants. The matter was just never brought to our attention at the time it was happening. And yes, everyone should have gone through site plan approval, or at least a waiver of further site plan approval. If the issue or the problem going forward has been resolved by the fact that we have a new building commissioner who is enforcing all aspects of the zoning bylaw in a way that they were not enforced previously. That's all I want to say about that.
Great. Thank you for the information. I was curious if there was anything in the past that might have been put forth that might affect what's happening now, but that definitely clears everything up. Thank you.
Anything else on that status? Or are we?
Mr. Viano has complied with his promise.
February 6th is the continuation of the hearing.
It requires a vote. I'll just note that the consensus is that it complies with the condition of the status conference. Okay.
Very good. Hello, Alex. The other one left. Okay, Mr. Bunnell, you are up. You can't call me tonight. You
No.
have alone?
No, this is it's a new year, gentlemen. It's a new year. I am here. Mr. Comey will not be joining us. He sends his best. I believe you all will be receiving a letter or some communication from him if not this week, next, regarding the DLTA request for 2024. But I'm here to discuss the latest version of rules and regulations for the board. If we're ready to jump into that conversation, I'm happy to.
Okay, we're set up for you to share the screen if you want.
Wonderful. Give me just a moment here. We should be seeing a Word document. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes. So this document, very similar to the one that we last looked at. We discussed in early December, trying to make this document readable, usable for members of the board. Remember, this is an internal document really to help board members and current and future, right? Get a sense of standard operations and administration of business before the planning board. So based on your first round of feedback, we started with a quick reorganization, bringing all of those administrative focused sections, including fees, hearings, waiver of any rules, administration, and up to the front of the document. So doing that, the first 12 pages or so reads very quickly. You get through a lot of kind of the nuts and bolts of what the planning board does, the makeup, responsibilities, and all that. My hope for tonight was to scroll through those pages, make sure that we're all on board, and then discuss the next phase of review, which will probably include bigger chunks of text and moving some stuff around. Does that sound all right with the board? Ready to move forward?
Yep. I have a question. How accurate do we want these things to be? Right down to the letter of the law, or can they be, that's close enough?
It's a wonderful question. From my perspective, keeping these as referential to the other documents that are permanent, you want to make sure that in this document, which is an internal board document, easily to revised and amended, I think that one can be more dynamic. I think you want to cover all of your bases for sure. I don't think you have to put every letter of every bylaw or general bylaw that grants authority to the board. I don't believe we'd want to copy and paste it. But I think you're going to want to be as accurate as possible for sure. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Okay. As we get through it, I will ask a couple of questions and the board can decide if I'm getting too nitpicky. I mean, I don't have a big feeling one way or the other. I just want to make sure that we're in agreement. That's all. Okay.
Fair enough. And I appreciate that. Please stop me at any time, gentlemen, to stop. So I'll zoom in a little bit. Bear with me. Right. Starting with section 1, our introduction, very straightforward. Is the authority for rules and regulations, outlines your authority and then provides a quick reminder of how to conduct business, follow procedure according to Robert's rules. Pretty straightforward section. Any thoughts, concerns?
No, but
I think that's fine.
Hearing none, thank you. We'll roll right along. So the organization, our first section up, duties and responsibilities of the planning board. Again, stresses that you all are duly elected and responsible for executing, administrating long-range plans, drafting zoning amendments for the town, adopting, amending subdivision regulations. And you are acting as a special permit granting authority. You're advising when applicable. Each is, I think, the one section where we will eventually want to make sure that that's a comprehensive list. If we want to get nitpicky, I think this is an area where you might want to be precise. If you are within the town's bylaws granted authority, I think this is where we want to make sure that we list that and then reference the relevant section where you can find more information. So this isn't a complete list. This was just kind of started with what we've got here. This might be a good time to think about that. As this list could get long, but I think this would be a place where we want to make sure it's accurate.
Well, are you making a distinction between the zoning bylaws and the town bylaws? Because the authority and the enforcement is different.
Right. Well, you would want, so I think you'd want to distinguish any of the town bylaws where you are granted authority. And then in those, if enforcement falls on a different party, I think you'd want to clarify that. I think, Joe, if I remember correctly, you brought up the issue of enforcement in a past meeting. I think it might be good to add a clause to clarify that the planning board does not act as the enforcement agent. And if there's ever a circumstance where you are, definitely to clarify that.
Yeah, well, in the past, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have a lone ranger on the board that would take it under their control to give people cease and desist. And it's put to other boards in town. So what we've made is we'll bring it up at an official meeting and make a recommendation that the zoning of this particular parcel is not in compliance and send it off to the building inspector or zoning enforcement officer. That will enforce the bylaw. So that's what we've been doing in the past.
So,
excuse me, go ahead.
Just to clarify, is the board comfortable with adding some language somewhere to clarify that process? Just to say that the board welcomes conversation about zoning
I don't know. Let's see what
issues. That's up to you.
think.
Yeah.
When I come to a meeting, one of the least things on my mind is how am I going to be able to administer and execute the long-term plan? I mean, that doesn't even cross my mind, but you've got it at, hey, like it's the most important thing. What's that all about?
I think that list is probably started by what is your responsibility based on general law. You know, you have an authority because of chapter 4181D. You know, you have a responsibility to do that. So that's an authority granted to you as a planning board. So I think that's just an allusion to that. Happy to rearrange any of this. If you think your business you would like to structure this in a way, I'm happy to.
I'm not sure that arranging these in any kind of a priority order will ever satisfy us. Maybe a simple statement saying that the list below is not in priority
Okay, yeah.
might be better.
I mean, seriously, if one of my duties is to execute and administer the long-range master plan, I failed miserably. Okay.
Oh, you've been very, you have jumped right in when we are actually discussing it.
Got it. Thank you, Bill.
Just adding a note here, and I will edit, no particular priority.
So kind of to add to what Kyle was discussing, does it make any sense to have like a 2.8 at the end? What we are not, we are not the enforcement agency. Please see the zoning enforcement officer. Or is that just overstating the obvious?
I think that's a good point.
Could you say that again, Mark? I'm quite sure I follow that.
I was just wondering if at the end of the organization section, I think it goes up to 2.7.
Right.
If you somewhere in there put, whether it's 2.7 or 2.8, you put in something to the effect of what we are not, and we are not an enforcement agency. When we say we are administrative, we are not outside the office. We are not, we do not overlap with the zoning enforcement officer.
That might be able to go right in the very first, go right back to section 1, please, Kyle.
Yeah.
Section one.
Or section
Section 1.
You want to put it right here?
Okay, no, maybe under.
Would you like to spell it out in the duties section to say what you're not?
A simple statement saying that the planning board has no enforcement authority. Doesn't have to be planning board duties.
Right.
Need not particular. Maybe
Yeah,
in the very first 2.1 in that sentence, simply including the planning board has no enforcement authority.
Okay.
Post site plan review, right? Because we have authority, but it doesn't come to enforcement. I have a lot of authority.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of leaning towards Mark's suggestion that we add it as a freestanding so that we can put in something to the effect that we welcome citizen input on zoning compliance issues, but we have no enforcement authority, and all such matters will be referred to the zoning enforcement officer.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's probably better.
You might say the zoning enforcement officer who is appointed by the select board.
I'll circle back. I'll rewatch what Mr. Dwyer just said in the minutes, and
Yeah,
I'll get some language put in there. Yes, I think that's an elegant, quick, simple little solution.
Okay.
Well, with Mike's little quickie sidebar, are any communities have the planning board given the authority to appoint the zoning enforcement officer? Or is it?
It's statutory.
Okay.
Right.
And it's select board.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we jumped to the bottom of section 2, but I believe we're discussing things in 2.1. I'm still sharing. Yeah.
So H needs to be completed with all the various permits, et cetera, the planning board is responsible for it, right?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
I think that'd be the
Okay,
next step.
that'll take a little bit of doing. All right.
Okay. So yeah, I'm happy to start working on that or connect with anyone if we have a list available, or we can circle back to it at a next meeting. So section 2.2, election of officers, appointment to committees. I believe this is accurate, but if you wouldn't mind taking a moment. I think we looked at this at a past meeting. 5 members elected at the annual town election, each with a 5-year term.
5 members with 1 elected.
With 1 elected. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
1 year
5
term.
members, comma, with 1 elected.
Oh,
Each year.
It's in further in this, with 1 elected at the annual town election each year,
year.
5-year term. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Each with a. Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that reads well. Vacancies shall be filled by the selectmen and remaining members accordance to 41, section 11. Two officers, chair and clerk. The first regular meeting after the town elections will be the organizational meeting. Right, I think that was accurate.
Yeah.
You know,
Now,
oh,
we have never done number 5.
okay.
Yes, we have.
Are we supposed to?
Yes. We did vote to authorize any one of you, me, and Joe to sign plans on behalf of the board after the board votes to approve them.
Correct.
So that's what is there. So,
Almost like an executive committee or something, right?
well, it's just for convenience. It started out as a COVID thing that we weren't all there to sign, put 5 ink signatures, and we don't want to ask Randy, for example, to drive around to 5 separate houses to get our signatures. That's why we voted to allow any one of the 3 of us who have been on for the longest to sign on behalf of the board, but only after the board has voted to approve it. So 5 is correct. We had not done it previously, but we've done it in the last couple of years.
But have we forwarded a copy to the Registrar of Deeds that we allow that?
Yes, I did that.
Oh, you did that? Okay.
It's part of the process for doing it. But
Okay.
if I could be hyper technical here, it's register, ER, not RAR.
Oh, yeah, we're not in college, right?
One more R out of there.
There we go.
Should there be any language in number 5 that says, authorized to sign after a duly voted majority or something like that? On behalf of a.
Yeah, it probably should not be irrelevant of whether it's a new member. Whenever a member is appointed,
Member as appointed.
board authorizing him or her to sign certain documents, copies shall be forwarded to the Register of Deeds and to the land court.
Okay. Yeah.
And
We don't need to say anything in there that it says, what did it say? Authorizing to, in the name of the board.
it would flow somewhere else, but maybe it's an action of the board. That's just keying into the filing, the formal requirements to authorize someone to do it. I think it's a good point that we should say that, just to be clear, that you can't go to one of us and ask us to sign something without having taken it to the board. But I think that belongs elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah, because it needs a fair amount of verbiage to.
Right.
Bill, after it's signed, do you forward it to the Registry of Deeds? Because
Yes.
I remember when I was chairman, I had the sole authority to sign, and I signed one, and they didn't like what the board voted on, and they never recorded it.
Well, the process in Hampshire County is so if you remember, we had a document appointing any of the three of us to sign, and we voted it at a meeting, and then it was signed by a majority of the board, which is what the statute requires. And I mailed it into the registry, and they keep it in a special file. They don't record it per se, but they accept things that are on the authority of that. Because every plan that has been approved in the last 3 years, going on 4, has gone in with one signature.
But it used to be that the surveyor would get the signature and record it.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is just the authority that we're talking about.
I got you.
I filed the letter of authority so that they know what to look for. But once we sign it, we have no further responsibility to do anything with it.
Um, 2.2.6 vacancies. Not in the same manners, but I believe that's accurate. Moving on to 2.3, the chair.
Yeah, this is, I mean, how fussy do we want to get on the, what we do? I mean, because to be honest, Bill sets 90% of the agenda. Yeah, I call special meetings. I represent the board. We both represent the boards on matters. I assemble any and all public hearings and mail them out. The clerk does not do that. Bill writes up the decisions of the special permits or whatever it may be and mails those out. So do we have to get that fussy is all my question.
I don't
Well,
think
that's the way it is now. But how will it be in 20 years?
Well, that's 20 years it might change, but do we want to be that fussy today? And in 20 years, if it changes, these are only the rules of the board that can be changed pretty easily.
I just recall that the reason we're basically doing this is so that the people that follow us will have a blueprint as to what the responsibilities of the board and the various officers are. So,
And that's my question. Are we okay with doing what we're doing today, but saying this? That's all.
I think that's fine. That's not, if it were a whole page, I would certainly want to take a second look, but for one paragraph, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Especially as we are working towards the future, that last sentence of the next paragraph basically means we can delegate things as we see fit from time to time.
Okay.
well, one of the most important things Bill does is when he gets a communication from somebody coming before us, he forwards it on to all of us. And I might want to be included. Is that there? I don't think so.
I think one of the most important things Bill does, I mean, what if Linda convinces him to retire and stick a pin in this board? We will not have an attorney on the board. He makes sure that our language is, we might have to farm out that someday if we don't have a Dwyer on the board.
Point. Well, he sees things through a lawyer's eye, and that's important.
So, yeah, Kyle, maybe the thing
Maybe
with somewhere,
We'll come
somewhere
back.
else, not necessarily as part of the clerk's duties, because someone else could be, but just to be clear that somewhere we have a authority to seek outside legal counsel.
Right, okay. Yeah,
We're not trying to get rid of Bill, but should he
He-
step in front of the PBTA, you know.
Mark, maybe his son, who is in law school now, will come back.
you getting the next generation ready, Joe?
I'm not counting on seeing him. I'm not counting on Dwyer and Dwyer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Bill, I like the thought of maybe there's a section somewhere about hiring, outside consultants generally, broadly, and we can also include
Yeah.
legal counsel for that.
Yeah.
I can't recall off the top of my head if that's actually in this document. If not, I think it probably, there should be some language about it.
A general seeking consultants and including
Right.
legal counsel, yeah.
Okay,
And would that be included in our budget, Bill? The
Well-
potential hiring?
What we do, the budget structure currently is that there is a single legal budget in the select board office for all legal needs of the town other than the school. So we can request a referral to legal counsel in situations that we feel require it, but we don't have a separate budget for it because we have no way of knowing what that might run to in any one year.
No, but I guess the point is that if we decide to go that route, we have to get the approval of the select board to spend their money.
Oh, I knew that one was coming.
That
And
is true.
if they don't like the way we voted, they will not give us the money. Okay. Carry it. We'll move right along from that one.
And maybe section 7 administration is where we put in language about, farming out certain duties if required.
yeah, I think that's a good thought, Mark. Thank you.
Maybe it should be Dwyer and Dunn.
Just since it's been brought up, are there any other budgetary concerns, protocols, procedures that you think? We haven't really brought it up. It doesn't show up in any of the sections really. Is that something that you all would like included?
Is peer review for site plan approval included anywhere?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, further down, it's got stuff in there about that, Joe.
good. Thank you.
I don't know, Bill, Jim, to have to budget for your board, is that kind of inherent in every board, or should that be noted?
It is. It's a top-down process in that we get a notice from the select board or the budget coordinator that it is budget time. And here's last year's budget, and Kayla filled it out after consulting Jim and me and submitted it. So there's a separate budget process. I don't think we have to go into any detail of that process in our bylaws.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Moving on, if there's no other thoughts. Small section on planning board appointments,
Yeah, that's fine.
including some language on the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Standards of conduct, very boilerplate kind of statements. Conflict of interest language, and then we'll add that small section on enforcement at the bottom of section 2. So
There's the standards of conduct reference that there is a town um, policy of conduct.
It doesn't apply to us.
That does not apply to us?
It applies to boards and committees under the jurisdiction of the select board.
Because
We
we're
might
rec-
want to adopt a standard of conduct, but the existing one does not apply to us as an independently elected board, since we're not under the control of the select board.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was a move to have us appointed.
That happens every couple of years, Mark.
Yeah.
Actually, the last talk about the strong administrator did leave the planning board as an independently elected board. Not to say the next version wouldn't be different, but
Right. Let's at least capture how we are right now. Moving on to section 3, I think our meeting language. So we have open meeting. Of course, referencing General Law 39, section 23, defining meeting so that that's clear. Outlining the agenda, posting at least 48 hours.
Yeah, file with the town clerk. Yeah, and the town clerk posts it, so we don't separately post it.
Okay.
Or we don't post it, so filing with the town clerk.
And then
Who publicly posts it?
Posts.
That'd be 48 business hours.
No, I think it's 48 hours.
No, 48 hours during Monday through Friday. So if you post it on Monday morning, your meeting can be held on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, but you couldn't post it on a Saturday, even though that's
Right.
48 hours. until
Saturdays,
Monday.
Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays don't count.
48
Yesterday
hours,
didn't count as a posting day.
Monday through Friday. Not including Saturdays and Sundays, right? For the legal holidays. Perfect.
Okay.
that's a first.
We don't need to put anything in here about Zoom and hybrid.
That'll be the next one.
Oh,
That's 3.2.
okay.
All right. Yeah, I think we need to address this. Yeah, so 3.2 meeting schedule. Scheduled first and third Tuesdays of the month at, should change that to 6:30. Yeah, how do you want to address that right now, gentlemen?
I would say we would probably prefer to use we might prefer to use the library versus the senior center. So I would say in a public building.
You have the public building.
So at such other time and or place and or
Online medium.
yeah, online media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is determined appropriate for the chair.
Suffices.
Yeah.
Me as well. Special meetings held by the chair at a time and location generally convenient to the public shall be at least 48 hours notice given.
Yep.
Accurate. Emergency meetings.
Any of those, Joe?
You
It's nice to list it, but I can't imagine the planning board having an emergency meeting. But
Right.
you never know.
Yeah, yeah. Subcommittee meetings, I don't believe the board tends to work this way, but that's something you want to consider.
Doesn't hurt to have it there.
Yeah, just, for the future's sake, I assume. Miscellaneous workshop meetings. No. I think that covers any of the types of events that you may offer on occasion if you're working on a larger kind of planning project. I think that's kind of just general language for calling any of that type of meetings. Quorum and voting, quorum of 3 members to conduct business. Present may be counted to determine whether a quorum is present, even if abstaining. Exception, if the board member is abstaining due to conflict of interest, cannot be counted as being present for the quorum for the portion of the meeting for which they are disqualified for reason of conflict of interest. Now, all votes must take place at a board meeting in person. No phone, email, proxy, or fax votes are accepted. Except for absences, right? I believe. We then go into.
We want to say we want to qualify all votes must take place at a board meeting in person or via a recognized electronic medium, whatever we used,
Electronic.
A little further up, right?
whatever we used previously.
Right. No proxies.
Online media.
Or, yeah.
Electronic media. Okay, I'm sorry, electronic media. No, electronic is fine.
Yeah.
8 absences pursuant to exceptions to the Mullins law, Mullins rule, excuse me. I believe was adopted by the town, correct? Yes, okay, that needs to be there. I believe it covers everything. We're on to section 4. So this is for the hearings, notice of public hearings. Open to the public, no person shall be excluded unless considered a serious hindrance.
What she.
Oh, I'm sorry, where?
Versus.
But question, with the new rules that have come out regarding banning somebody or trying to silence somebody, do we even want that sentence in there?
Yeah, I think we do. The statute is still in effect.
Mhm.
That the chair can ask a constable or police officer to remove someone who's causing a disruption. The cases have redefined what is a disruption, but they haven't. They didn't change the statute, so I think you might want to call for a vote rather than exercising it unilaterally. But I can see situations where someone could be truly having a psychotic incident at the meeting.
Several years back, didn't we ask the constable to come into our meeting for something?
We never asked him. What happened was somebody called the constable outside of the planning board.
That's right. Joe Searle was the constable, and the
Well,
town.
that goes back, there was one even with the Walmart, what I'm talking about.
Okay, that one, that's all right. This was,
Yeah.
I was talking about the.
That was a town meeting, Joe, where they tried to throw you out.
Correct.
Imagine that.
You have to make sure to make it to the annual meeting this year, and it gets lively in Hadley, I hear. Sounds like a fun time.
You can watch it on, Facebook.
Might be safer to watch it. Won't get too.
My wife, who is from Bogota, Colombia, has come to a few town meetings, and she said that this had gone on to Bogota, Colombia, 3 or 4 people would be dead already.
Survivor Hadley, our own.
Yeah.
Reality.
So, Mr. Dwyer, I think you'd mentioned maybe some language to suggest that it's a vote of the board rather than a unilateral decision, or.
The statute says the chair can exclude. So I think I'd say leave it there, but just be mindful that it is not just because the chair just has to be mindful of the recent
Just
case.
because the chair doesn't like somebody, it doesn't have that authority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fair. Okay. So, number 2, in accordance with General Law 40A, Section 11, public hearings shall be published in newspaper, of general circulation in the town once a week for 2 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, that's taken right from statute. That's fine.
Yeah, word for word.
At least 14 days before the hearing. Yeah, I think that's parties of interest. I think that one's pretty accurate. Also includes a budding city and town.
Yeah. I think actually, if we're looking to save space here, and I'm not sure that's necessarily a goal, but I think it would be sufficient to say notices of public hearings shall be provided in accordance with MGLA Chapter 48, Section 11.
Yeah. As
Right.
opposed to repeat chapter 40, section 11.
It just saves
Period.
people having to Google it. Yeah, it is kind of overkill.
We'll just strike that.
Yep.
I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, 1 in.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There we go. Okay. Public hearing notice shall contain the name of the petitioner.
Yeah, I think again, we probably don't even need that.
Yeah, if that number 2 is accurate and precise enough. Look at that.
It's a good reminder though, but okay.
Public participation.
I don't think we need to. How about the invitation of the chair?
Okay.
Yeah, instead of a quorum vote. Yeah.
That applies more to town meeting.
Right.
You know, will only be allowed to address the chair or board upon the invitation of the chair.
Thank you. If the chair determines it's become too disorderly, he may request a motion for a recess.
Or may ask for a vote to eject pursuant. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so 4.2 is good.
Yeah.
4.3, calling of public hearings. Reason for permit, site plan approval. Or any definitive subdivision application before the board prior to the enactment of any long-range master plan element. Or mandated public hearings prior to adoption or amendments of the zoning bylaw or map, and for any other action for which the planning board determines public hearing will be useful. I think that covers everything.
Probably, you want to say something about, adoption of rules and regulations, because the subdivision regulations are in there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so for any action which the planning board determines a public hearing will be required.
Rather than useful, required.
Required. Comma, such as adoption of subdivision regulations. And other planning board regulations.
Number 4, conduct of public hearings. Which public hearings which may take place during regular scheduled meetings, advertised in accordance. Right now, state statutes which govern it. Public hearings when called will be conducted in the following manner. Chair announces that it's time for a public hearing. Review evidence of adequate advertisement and legal notice, and appropriate and proper according to the law. We'll have the advertised read as a record. Chair then explains procedure to be followed. The chair will announce that the public hearing will begin. I think that's all accurate so far. Chair will report on any new or changed information pertinent to the subject. Read into the record all memorandum, opinions, comments, and recommendation of town departments and board pertinent to the matter. C, I believe is accurate.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Making good progress, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. Subsection D, principal proponent of the project staff person will then be asked to make a presentation regarding the matter. I think this is pretty standard. E, other persons supporting be allowed to speak.
Other people.
Thank you. Works. F. Before opponents to an application or petition are called to speak, a member of the board may move for invocation of a summary procedure. And if seconded and approved by a majority of the quorum, may subsequently move to deny the request made by the applicant based on a finding that the evidence presented was not adequate to justify the request. If the motion for denial is then seconded and is approved by the quorum, the public hearing may be deemed complete. We like that's the right placement for that, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. So G, those persons speaking in opposition to the position taken by the principal proponent, then allowed to speak, each being allowed to express the fact of his opposition and to present such supportive as well. All right. And to present such supportive as was not included in previous presentations before the board. Present such. Okay. G, good.
So I think we do it a little differently. After the proponent, then we have a opportunity for board members to question the proponent
Okay.
before we take up opposition.
Yeah.
So a new between F and G, a new G, I guess. We still want G, but we want,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Honestly, the board or the chair will then,
Actually,
or do you want?
boards, the planning board speaks right after D. We let the planning board speak before the public starts getting any comments.
Okay, so do you want to, so maybe
He is the proponent,
principal.
principal. I guess, so after D, then we,
Planning board comments.
planning board comments.
Comments and or questions? It's just a new E and then E becomes F, right?
Right. I'm sure this will automatically recalibrate, but it's not set up that way for now. So
Yeah.
It's not currently, unfortunately, I've brought too many documents together, so it's not automatic. We'll get it there though.
just in planning board discusses. And then current F would fit in. Planning board discusses and asks questions. And then F would fit in.
New people supporting the position of the proponents will then be allowed to.
Yeah, do we want other
Is that out of order?
supporters?
Yeah, yes, you would. That's what we usually do. We ask if there's anyone who's, after the planning board discusses and asks questions, actually, then that would be the time for a summary motion. If one is to be made, usually it isn't. We've hardly ever gotten anything as far as actually filing an application where it was not ready. But it's fine to have it there, but planning board discusses, then capital D, then F follows capital D.
Okay.
And then we ask, is there anyone else who is supporting it? And then we ask if there's anyone who opposes it.
Right, so E is support, and then we have opposition, G.
Yeah.
So we're gonna reorder these real quick. E, F, G.
Right. And then in the persons in opposition to present such supportive material, that was not.
Thank you, such support. Yeah, there was something there that I was missing. As was not included in previous. Okay. So we're good through H, I believe. And then we're at to I, after all opponents have been heard. We read into the record all letters. J. The chair will then call for general discussion or question and answer period. Excuse me. All right. K, at any point, a public hearing may be continued or postponed to a time, place, and date certain. Excuse me. Provided that these rules and procedures are adhered to when it is resumed, or may be continued or postponed to a time, place, and date not certain. Required advertising notice procedures are followed to announce the time, place, and date of resumption. I think that's
Is that person's there again? Am I being picky, or does it not sound good, persons as opposed to people under J?
Thank you. Only chairman, speakers.
right there.
That property person.
I'm fine with changing it. I think it's
Yeah.
an older style or more formal style, maybe.
So I think after J and before K, we do have something about closing the public hearing.
Okay.
And I think you can track some of the same language. At any point, a public hearing may be closed by majority vote. Just as a practical matter, I don't recall that we have ever closed the public hearing and then continued the discussion to another day.
Correct.
Usually, what it usually ends up with is at some point after the discussion and the question and answer, at some point as the steam deflates from the presentation, someone will jump in and make a motion to approve or deny.
Right.
But I suppose we want to maintain the option of closing the public hearing.
Yeah.
So any additional language there, Mr. Dwyer, for
No, I
closing?
think that's fine.
You don't have to say what you could close it for, what intentions to vote on it or to. No.
I think we'd have to either vote on it or
It would have to get
motion to. I've moved to close the public hearing and continue discussion to our next meeting or something like that. But I don't know as we have to say that.
You can close a public hearing, which really means you're closing the input from the public, and the planning board can continue it at a future date to discuss it and hold a vote.
Right.
We've never done that, but it's possible.
So in the circumstance perhaps where principal proponent wasn't there with sufficient information, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. You may close the public hearing
We usually, if we feel the application is incomplete and someone says, well, can you approve it subject to me getting you that information later? We once upon a time would say, okay, but then later never happened. So we now, if we get to a point that something is missing, we will continue the public hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
To allow for more to be brought in.
Yeah. About the only time we will give conditional approval is if signs aren't complete because they don't have their sign design yet. But as far as any portion of the meat and potatoes of the actual applicant, that we'll tell them, no, you get us the information, because like Mr. Dwyer says, well, we'll get it to you later, and well, sometimes later is the next meeting and sometimes it's not.
Next year.
And we don't feel like chasing it. If we have a big carrot over their head or a big stick, they come back in a timely fashion.
I suppose there could be a scenario where a public hearing goes until 10 o'clock and nobody wants to spend another half hour crafting a motion. So it is possible that we would close the public hearing and then continue planning board discussion at a future meeting.
Right.
And hopefully that would be a scenario like the Walmart where we filled the high school cafeteria. But presumably not everyone would feel they had to come back if the public hearing was closed.
Right.
Just to be clear, in K, closing a public hearing is not final. You can reopen it at a later date, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know,
So I think M was the last section we hadn't looked at, written information by applicant or public regarding an applicant application shall be submitted either to the planning board prior to the public hearing or at the public hearing. Information out of that. Right, okay. All right, quorum at regular board meetings. The majority of the authorized membership will constitute a quorum and must be present to conduct the meeting.
just to jump back to M, we
Yeah.
don't need, we don't need to put in there the courtesy the Friday before. That's covered elsewhere, right?
Yes, that's really just for the people who want to come in and ask us for something in the first half hour.
No.
We have a chance to look at it. In this area, we've had things filed. By the time it gets to a public hearing, we've had it filed with us for a month or so. And if someone does come in with a bombshell at the last minute, so be it. We'll look at it.
Right. Okay.
All right. Quorum at regular board meetings. I believe this is mentioned earlier, but I don't know if we want to restate it for the sake of public hearings.
Yeah, I don't know if that needs, I think it was mentioned
It
previously.
was, yes.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. So I will strike that if that's all right. Site visit. I don't know how often you as a board like to conduct site visits, or if there's any additional kind of protocol you'd like to elaborate on. This is kind of something.
Site visit.
Right,
Leaving him there in case it ever comes up.
right. That's fair. It is. It is not uncommon in other communities. So. Right. Great progress, gentlemen. We're in section 5. I do want to just acknowledge it is 8:23. So we'll keep pressing right along. If that's all right.
Did you have to do a site visit with the library parking and fire department access? Wasn't there some question about the width of the road?
There was, but Mike Spanknable,
Yeah.
He
The
performed.
other boards took care of that, not the planning board.
Right, okay. So planning board fees.
Yes. I think this is a pretty important section. So I do want to make sure that this is accurate.
We,
So general, list of application fees. See, project review fees, so 5.2. So accordance with chapter 44, section 53G. Planning board may impose project review fees. Review process due to the size, complexity, or scale of proposed project, the need for additional expertise in the review, or because of the potential impact of the project.
let me tell you what we do.
Okay.
We used to do it this way. And it became a bookkeeping issue and a chase the developer issue if the fees overshot the deposit.
Right.
So we adopted approved a list of approved peer review consultants
Right.
and directed the applicant to contract directly with one of the listed peer review consultants or another qualified consultant if our previously approved ones were not available, to negotiate their fee with the peer review, to discuss things with the peer review engineer to engineer, and to have the peer review engineer on behalf of the town file a report with the planning board.
And they pay the peer review directly and the town never receives a penny.
It takes us out of that whole mess.
We've been doing that for probably, going to be 20 years now. And it works like a charm
Okay.
because the applicant now gets on the peer review. Hey, how are you doing in my review? How are you doing in my review? As opposed to the planning board bothering anybody. The planning board gets basically a clean report regarding whatever they're looking at. And we don't care about everything goes on in between that point.
Right.
It saves everybody time and money.
Okay.
Now, Conservation Commission does do that peer review, does do this project review structure.
Right.
So part of the thought process behind having a peer review list is that if you as a developer really want Cadillac service and you're willing to pay for Cadillac service, you can get a peer review done in 2 weeks.
Right.
And so it allows the project developer to negotiate with the peer review and takes us out of the negotiation.
Right. Okay.
So should 5.2 become peer review process?
So yeah, this may be rather than try to rewrite this on the fly,
Right.
this might be a good play. Let's scroll down and see what else you've got in 5.
Sure.
And then we'll maybe just.
You got the schedule.
Yeah.
There's something, Bill, or I can give you a review, a write-up on how to do that.
What about our right to require a surety bond? Is that mentioned any place in here or is that irrelevant at this point?
It's in the site plan.
It is appropriate for some things and not others, Mike. So it's not a carte blanche. It does or it does not apply.
Do we want to mention that we have the right to do that?
That may be further down.
It may be further down, but it is in the bylaw. Once upon a time, the building inspector was telling us that if the project was built to code, he could not, he was required to provide a certificate of occupancy. Subsequently, that has been changed to some degree to say that project has to comply with all required zoning before it can be considered to be complete. And so you basically, the holding up the certificate of occupancy is a pretty good tool to assure compliance. And we don't have to bookkeep it.
Right.
At the same time, I think purpose surety at times was to be sure that something happened in the future.
We do removal bonds for solar.
Okay.
And that's provided for in the bylaw.
Okay.
So the rest of section 5 on fees, we have your.
I need to get you a new fee schedule, Kyle, because this thing is very much out of date with
Thank
the
you.
change in the legal notices. This was really to cover the legal notices and the mailings and a small fee to the town.
Right.
legal notices are running about $500 per advertisement. So this thing is way out of whack.
Okay,
We had to change our theory on flat fees. So basically
Yes.
now we now charge the legal
Market
notice,
rate.
the cost of mailings plus 10%. I will get that to, I'll get all that stuff to you.
great. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Okay, so 5.3 will be updated and then, yeah, I believe we'll want to put some thinking and care into section 5.2, which would likely be more of the peer review process.
We might want to, there's nothing wrong with what you have there.
Right.
We might want to have a 5.2.1, which would be the preferred process, and
Okay.
5.2.2, which would be this.
Okay.
It's good to have a structure. You know, we've never had anyone say, that's not how I want to do it, but
Right.
we could. So if we have to fall back to the statutory structure, it's good to have it there. But yeah, let's do it that way.
I think that makes sense.
I like that. I agree. Thank you, gentlemen. So that gets us through section 5. Waiver of the rules, section 6, very short, 2 subsections. So we got waiver of compliance, strict compliance with these administrative rules and regulations may be waived when, in the opinion of the board, such waiver is in the public interest and is consistent with the intent and purpose of the town of Hadley zoning bylaw. Waivers shall be sought only from procedural elements of the planning board's rules and regulations, and any waivers granted shall not be construed as providing relief from the substantive requirements of zoning. Six two. A written request for a waiver from these rules shall be made, and at the time of filing, oral request is made at a hearing or meeting, it shall be reduced to and submitted as a written request prior to the close of the public hearing. Any request must clearly identify the provision or provisions in these rules from which relief is sought, and such a request must be accompanied by a statement setting forth the reason and reasons why. In the petitioner's opinion, the granting of the waiver would be in the public interest and consistent with the intent and purpose of the bylaw and these rules. I think that's the theme.
That sounds right.
Section 7, administration. The adoption of these rules and hereby adopted on this date. Not yet determined. In the validity, in the event of a conflict between the provisions of these rules and regulations and the provisions of Massachusetts Zoning Act and the Hadley zoning bylaw, provisions of the Massachusetts Zoning Act and the Hadley zoning bylaw shall apply.
Just housekeeping in 7.1, there's a second E in hereby. HERE.
Oh, thank you. That's why it's popping up. Reading right by it. 7.3 amendment. From time to time, the planning board may amend these rules and regulations. Such rules and regulations shall be adopted following a majority vote of the board at a public meeting.
So this is one of my pet peeves.
Yes.
Internal cross references. So 7.1, I would like to say it something like I hereby adopted as shown on the we put some sort of a page or something as shown in the preamble. And then we could have a legislative history of when we have adopted it, but have that be on page 2.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So
and not have to come into page, what are we on, page 12 now?
12 or 13, 12 or 13, yeah, 12.
Yeah. Yeah, just as shown on page 1 or something. You can leave it in, just say,
Right.
just reference a I'm not sure quite. It's shown on the legislative history.
Hey, Mike Szerzinski here. When's the last call for the kitchen?
So, yeah, as shown on.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You don't want to say by the Honorable Hadley plan?
Honorable, venerable,
The right honorable venerable.
the right honorable.
Infamous.
Yeah, so I left that comment in there, Mr. Dwyer, so we'll make sure to put some adoption clause on the opening page and we'll reference that internally accurately.
You already have something there,
Is there? Okay.
but
Yeah, okay. Adoption. We'll make sure it's here. Okay. So I believe Mr. Dunn had mentioned perhaps in section 7, this is where we may put something about enforcement. Did we decide that was in 2.8? I'm just now remembering. I think we decided that was 2.8.
yeah, I think we addressed it.
Okay. Sorry, we've been looking at this document for a while. I apologize.
Yeah, but I do feel like there was something else that we thought might go back here, but I don't think it was the,
Oh, hiring outside counsel and consultants. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so take the language that
yeah, I saw it in an earlier.
it's in the prior section about hiring consultants
Right.
for just copy that, paste it in there for now, and we'll paraphrase it. So it's not well.
Where was it? It was
in the fee schedule, project review fees.
Oh, yeah, it was the end of 5.2.1.
Yeah, actually, the last sentence is just copy the last sentence.
The board may engage attorneys, engineers, planners, landscape architects, well, I wouldn't say architects. Or other appropriate professionals or other, yeah, that's. All we need is more architects.
Well, from time to time, the board may engage attorneys, engineers, planners, or other appropriate officials.
Yep.
As required to benefit the town in their work or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Or just as is.
I think as required, and then we could just make a
yeah,
ad hoc determination about whether we require it in a situation.
Right.
You know, there are times when I will say that I want town council's opinion on this.
Right.
I'm not going to give an opinion because I don't get paid the big bucks. And likewise, there may be a situation where we want to have a landscape architect consult with us on developing a section of a bylaw. And not particular to any application.
There may be a day when we don't have a brilliant legal mind. on our board.
Yeah. You know.
The longer these meetings run, the less brilliance. I can feel it see now.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us. If we may just quickly look at section 8, that was what we had initially agreed upon. If I can have just another minute, 8.1 informal meetings. Prior to filing an application, applicants are encouraged to schedule a meeting with the planning board to discuss projects informally.
Yeah.
And then scope of board reviews, the board will review preliminary materials in an attempt to avoid unnecessary deficiencies in the application to be filed and to promote efficiency in the formal review and hearing process. The board may request other town boards or departments to comment prior to the date of the meeting or attend the meeting to ensure efficiency of review. The board will not be responsible for assuring the accuracy, correctness, or thoroughness of any application submitted for a review. Informal review shall be concluded 20 days following the receipt or the request for review, unless such time is extended by the board and the applicant. Is that accurate?
I would take out the last sentence.
20 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think that applied. It seems like you all can get through and it works. Okay. So thank you, gentlemen. Those were the sections I wanted us to get through today for this iteration. So thank you for bearing with me, getting through
Thank
that.
you, Kyle.
I think we addressed some questions that I had and brought up some good ones. I believe we are going to be sharing some more accurate information regarding fees and the peer review process, particularly, and the new fee schedule. Beyond that, we can start looking at the next sections where we start to get into some of the we have the big one, special permit review, followed by commercial site plan approval, limited business review guide, home occupation, erosion and sediment control for stormwater management, and inclusionary zoning as existing sections. Some of those in the back end will need a lot of work because currently they're just kind of copied and pasted bylaws. So we'll need to work through those, but I'm open at this point to if we're happy with how we approached it this time. Moving forward, I'm happy to come back at the next or your next meeting or first meeting in February at your convenience with the next 2 or 3 sections, handful of pages, and then updates to the sections covered today. Does that work for everybody?
We do have the continuation of the public hearing on the garden for the 6th.
Right.
And we had been trying to have public hearings on the 3rd Tuesday and actual planning on the 2nd Tuesday, but then we got off that a little bit
Holidays.
About scheduling. So I think it might be more efficient to have you on the 20th where we have that scheduled.
February.
We got in the Green Gardens on the 6th, and that might be a while. And I hate to have you hanging around waiting for that. Right at 20th is going to be right now, not much.
All right, the 20th. I will put that in my calendar. For the 20th, I think for the 20th, I would like to bring back not just any revisions and updates to those first 8 sections, but I'll try to bring back sections 9, 10, and 11. I'll get those to everybody. If we're meeting on the 20th, that next email will come out, if not earlier, the 16th of February.
Okay.
And if I haven't heard back, I know, gentlemen, you're busy, but I'll check in with you, Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Chair, by the start of February if I haven't heard from you regarding fees and such.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate the
Thank you.
attention and
Good
the
job.
feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, for your patience
Yeah.
and expertise.
Yeah.
Anything, Mr. Quinlan?
Do we need a motion or did we have a motion to pay that overdue Gazette bill? Was no,
I think we had approved it and it just didn't get sent in.
oh, okay, that's fine. I'll take care of that. I wasn't sure. That's why I didn't submit it yet. And the energy storage bylaw. Any comments on that?
You cleaned up?
Anything?
That gonna require a public hearing?
Oh, that's good. That'll be a zoning amendment. That'll require will require a public hearing.
So the solar bylaw we can require a surety. Should we have a surety for removal of the batteries?
Yes.
Yep.
That'll be included. Yeah.
We're treating it as we treat it as a solar structure, solar system, then it falls under the removal requirements.
Right. Yes.
How can we treat it as a solar system if it isn't a solar system?
Yeah, if there's no goat milk in there.
There's no what?
Solar energy.
I'm going back to what was Tom's, what was his name? Tom,
Tom Wolf?
No, the engineer that came to us with this first
Tom
project.
Corbett.
Tom Corbett, yeah. I think I had him pulling his hair out when I said, how do you call it solar? And I used the analogy of goat milk and dairy milk and.
Yeah. I've read that the life of these things is almost only 6-7 years, so removal is going to be happening often.
Where did you read that, Mike?
Yeah.
Same place I get all my information. Online, but that makes sense because how long is the life of a battery in a car? It's not that long, right?
You're confusing the life of a battery with the life of the system. Two different things. Batteries can be replaced with new ones.
Sure.
They can replace batteries within.
I'm not confused. By the way, I'm not confusing the two.
What? I have no idea what the life of an energy storage system is, but I would guess it's got to be 20+ years.
What do you base that on? Just
the life of. I'm basing that on just the life of financing. That nobody's going to put up a system and spend this kind of money on something that's going to be thrown away in 6 years. They may replace part of the batteries. As they need to be. But the system itself, there's a lot more to the system than just batteries.
So
excuse me.
Yeah, the standard solar lease is for 20 years with 2 10-year extensions.
Right.
But you've got to look at the total return, and if there's certain tax benefits to this, you don't care if the thing wears out in 2 months. You don't know what the tax benefits that the state's providing.
Doesn't matter.
It's true. And if it's 2 months, then they'll be dismantling it and paying to dismantle it and put it in. I mean, that's not our choice. That's not our decision.
But again, 20 years downstream, we want to make sure somebody's going to be removing these things. This is a hot topic right now, Jimmy. You know that. I know that.
That's what the removal bond is about, Mike.
Correct.
The removal bond for the batteries is a whole lot different than a removal bond for the solar panels.
So is the town treasurer is going to be responsible for monitoring that bond, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's not a lot of monitoring. The bond is purchased, registered with the town, and it sits for 20 years.
Right.
And that's based on some estimated cost with an inflationary factor for 20 years?
Yeah, I think the formula is in the, I think there's a formula in the bylaw. But in general, we have been getting estimates from the applicants as to what the removal costs will be.
But bottom line is everybody reasonably okay with this revised solar energy bylaw as written to go to town meeting with it?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I think it covered all of our questions and comments.
Especially in the aquifer protection area.
I did have one thought which escapes me at the moment, that we might have to amend something else as well. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, that's fine. All right, we'll get into it, but Mr. Corbett has applied to put in a solar energy system in the old gravel pit off of Huntington Road. That is in the aquifer. That is not going to be a permitted use. So we should notify Mr. Corbett of that?
Yes, I think we should. Before he
Okay.
files, we ask for a filing fee.
Right, okay,
And he just sent an email asking what the filing fee was going to be.
right, I got that.
Just
Okay,
to
I'll
be
reply-
accurate, we probably shouldn't call it a solar storage. It's an energy storage, electricity.
Well, it is called an
storage.
energy storage system, yeah.
Well, you just said solar storage.
I said that, but it specifically called it energy storage system.
Yeah.
He's not grandfathered by getting his
That's
application
the
in.
title of the bio, of the section. Small or large capacity, depending on what's going on.
If that's the case, then it blows Eversource's need out of the water because that's where they needed it.
Well, we can't help that because if we don't allow it in our aquifer recharge area because of the chemicals involved or potential chemicals involved, then that's
Thank you, Jim.
that's the way it is.
I know.
To Mark's point, he may want to argue that he is grandfathered because he filed before
We ruled it out.
ruled it out. So if that's the case, so be it. We'll, if we end up having to absorb one energy storage system in the aquifer, so be it.
Right.
But
We responded as quickly as we could.
I don't think that Eversource was necessarily concerned. I think Eversource wants the capacity that he offers. I don't know that the place he offers it, the only reason they liked it there was it was convenient to their three-phase system. I'm not
We
sure.
know, excuse me.
Yeah, I just don't know if they might not just be they might be as happy with it anywhere that it is connectable to their system.
Right.
Do we know who owns Corbett's place of employ? I mean, you look at the address and it's a single room on some street in Worcester. I'm just curious as to who's really benefiting from this, I guess. That's not the purview of this board, though.
It's not. He's the applicant that's before us. And as long as he can come up with the filing fee and the removal bond, that's what we could do from a zoning perspective. Based on my experience representing a few people who have solar fields, a lot of the people who you are meeting at this phase are I hate to call them salesmen, but they are they're wholesale, sort of wholesaling something. They're putting a package together, finding the site, getting the permitting done, And then they turn around and sell their interest to other companies who will operate it going forward. So, I can't say for this is what the case is, but in other solar fields that I've represented people in, that's what's happened. It gets sold to someone who is in the business of holding solar fields and not in the business of further permitting of solar fields.
Like when you get your mortgage, you may not end up with the same mortgage company. It gets sold.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we touched on this at the end of the last meeting. I could be wrong. But do we have some future work to do to think about regulating home energy storage? I know I'm considering one in the next 5 years, having an EV, and I could do solar and store it to a battery and then charge my car.
That is included in this bylaw.
Is it? Okay.
That's under 90 kilowatt hours is
Yeah.
typically a home system.
Yeah.
And the home energy systems are a much higher scare, if you would, to the fire department than the big commercial ones that are 5 megawatts.
Right, because those are outdoors and these are usually within a structure, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought we touched on that.
Yeah, it's gonna go, if you put a home energy system in, if it's associated with a solar system or not, it's gonna go to the same simple review that a roof mounted system would. And we notify everybody, and of course, when you put it in, you gotta put a sticker on the outside of your house that says you got an EV system. When the fire department comes, they say, watch it burn.
And your insurance rate goes up to the,
So, okay.
let's get the
Anything from the
guys
building
on.
commissioner?
Yes.
Dee Dee, anything?
Let me just check with Tommy. Anything else? No, I guess we are good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else?
I've got nothing else.
I have nothing else. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is history. Thank you,
History.
Kyle.
Call
Thank you,
Joseph
Tim
on.
and Dee Dee, and thank you, Kyla and Alex.